Welcome to Africa Express. Today we have a very special guest, someone whom I've been talking about him for the last couple of weeks, that he will be here on Africa Express to talk to us. He is none other than Dr. Kandeh Yumkella, who is a leading expert in economics and energy. Today he is really here to talk to us about something different, something everyone else has been expecting, both in the international world and in Sierra Leone. Dr. Kandeh Yumkella, you are welcome to Africa Express.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Sir, you are known as a leading expert in economics and energy. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Just tell the rest of the world, apart from the expert that works for UN and doing all these great things, who are you?
Well, my name is Kandeh Yumkella, born in Sierra Leone. Studied in Sierra Leone and did my master's at Cornell, PhD, University of Illinois, and I was teaching at Michigan State University, Department of Ag Economics. I then went home to Sierra Leone, served briefly as a minister for trade industry and state enterprises, resigned, came back to Michigan State to continue my teaching, and then I joined the UN. And for almost 20 years now, I have been in the United Nations. I had the privilege of being elected twice as Director General of one of the specialized agencies of the UN, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, that is based in Vienna, Austria. During that period, I had the privilege of working in Nigeria for 3 years, 2000 to 2003, and then I was later elected in 2005 as the Director General, 2 terms. The last 2 years, I have served as Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for Sustainable Energy for All. So I've been dealing with global energy issues and climate change and sustainable development almost for a decade now.
Okay, so why do you want to leave all that to become the president of Sierra Leone?
Well, first of all, I had a wonderful career. As I said, almost 2 decades. And I've done pretty well in trying to move the global agenda on transitioning to a low-carbon development path. I've also advocated strongly for energy access for developing countries, and also pushed for economic diversification, job creation, and wealth creation in poor countries. Done a lot on public-private partnerships for driving big investments into economies for low-carbon growth. I have looked at all of that and really had a fulfilling career, and I've decided, well, I needed another challenge. And that challenge is to go back to Sierra Leone, 6 million people, one of the poorest countries in the world, at the bottom of the Human Development Index, to say, fine, now 6 million people, this is where I was born, with all what I have learned globally, in the United States, in the international community. Let me see how I bring those skills back home and international goodwill to transform the lives of 6 million people, applying a lot of the knowledge that I have gained, because it's a poor country in terms of per capita income, in terms of human development, but it's amongst one of the richest in Africa. So you have this contradiction. A country rich in natural resources, one of the largest deposits of iron ore, one of the purest deposits of titanium in the world, diamonds, gold, you name it, 6 million people, but they're amongst the poorest of the poor. In fact, for most of the past 2 decades, they are the last country on the Human Development Index. So that bothers me. And I say, well, that's a challenge I like. Can I go in, understand the problems, work with the people, and see how collectively, as a people, we transform that country into one of the most prosperous in the world within 2 decades.
So that's commendable of you, but that country, as it stands right now, isn't, at least I know that with the Ebola issue, so much is going on. Why would you choose this time?
The timing, yeah, that's what my friends have told me, even senior executives around the world. They say, why would you go now? Ebola just almost decimated your country, wrecked the economy. The economy is expected to shrink by 23% this year, alone shrink. Why would you choose now? Well, that's really the time to go. I think Martin Luther King once said that you don't judge a man, the character of a man, in times of comfort, but in times of challenge and the positions they take. For me, it's one of the last things I want to do now. It's a passion. My colleagues that I have worked with over the past 2 decades have told me that every 4 or 5 years, I seem to choose a challenge that is difficult. And this is one that will be a labor of love. Going back to really be with my people, work with them, show them the potential around the world, show them what trade can do for them, help them develop an enabling condition to attract private investment, both domestic and foreign private investments, diversify that economy. Because I'm truly convinced that it is possible to put that nation on a trajectory of growth, opportunity, and prosperity within the next 10, 15 years, and our grandchildren and children can live in prosperity. So that's the excitement, to really go in and look at a challenge that people think are impossible.
As you just said it yourself, Sierra Leone is one of the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, at least by paper, if I would say. Now, coupled with Ebola, do you have any specific plan regarding dealing with the issue of Ebola? Because it's still there. Sierra Leone still remains one of the countries where Ebola is still in existence.
The reality is, when Ebola hit, I was there when it almost was going to 700 cases per week. I was there in October last year. Since Ebola hit that country, I've been there 4 times, much more than many other people have done. It shows the fact that I'm committed to my country. Even when there's a crisis, I go in to help the government. I have been on most of the major international networks, BBC, CNN, Sky News, Al Jazeera, advocating at that time last year that the international community needed to do more, that we were not doing enough. Yeah. So looking ahead, I have also seen the international community very generously supporting the 3 countries, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, over $3 billion to arrest that problem. Liberia at 0. In our case, yes, it is stubborn, but it's not too bad. I mean, in New York last week when I was there, I was informed by my colleagues that as of July 31st, they're closing the Ebola center, UNMIA center in Ghana, because they've seen the threat level is very low now. That period, the last 2 weeks, 5 cases in Guinea and Sierra Leone. And also in July, the international community have hosted in the UN a very good donors conference where they've mobilized over $3.2 billion for the 3 countries for post-Ebola recovery. Sierra Leone itself has asked for $1.06 billion. So my point here is, as far as Ebola is concerned, with the amount of goodwill and resources the international community is bringing in now to Sierra Leone, we can fix it and we can prepare ourselves to deal with Ebola ourselves. But also, the good news is there's a vaccine coming out. So you look at that, we can put Ebola behind us. But the fact is, Ebola wrecked the economy too. Our 2 leading iron ore mines were closed down. I know 2 of our major banks are in trouble. So the economy needs to be rebuilt. Ebola also showed the fragility of our key institutions. I believe it is now going in, working with the government, civil society, in order to rebuild that nation. This is the time. Maybe we've learned the lesson that if we don't do things right, if we don't monitor investments, if we don't do robust public policy, our institutions could collapse easily with one shock. Maybe that is the time. People are more conscious now. Also accountability, that we should hold our government, our leadership, and ourselves accountable to utilize resources in the proper way.
You mentioned something as you were talking about how much money that was given to Sierra Leone. So, Africa as a whole, it seemed like we seem to be bailed out every time, most of the time. Now, in terms of Sierra Leone, a country that is already maxed out, and now they're getting more foreign aid, some of this money, how are they going to pay it back?
Well, a lot of that is going to be aid. So my point is the following. You need aid to build your institutions. You need aid to attract knowledge into your economy through technical assistance. But I believe this strongly, and I've said it in the UN, even when I'm leading institutions. A country like Sierra Leone should set a deadline. And I've already said that when we were celebrating the 50th anniversary of our independence. Mm-hmm. I say we have no business as a nation in 10 or 20 years asking for aid from anybody. Meaning what? We must be determined ourselves to say we want to graduate out of poverty. So with the international goodwill you get and your resources, diversify your economy, spread knowledge, educate your citizenry, give them skills, diversify your economy so you're not only dependent on natural resources. And unfortunately, we have a geographic advantage because where we're located is not too far from Europe, nor is it far from the United States. 6 million people with all the natural resource wealth we have. I am convinced we can diversify, we can set a deadline, and let our children and citizens believe that in 20 years, we will not ask anybody for aid because we will be prosperous enough. We'll have a sovereign wealth fund, just like the Norwegians. There are all these models that we've dealt with, that we've advised countries on. And I just say to myself, look, I have been in the service of humanity for 2 decades. With the remaining energy the good Lord has given me and a lot of knowledge, can I go back and help my people believe in their soul that they can be great and they can say, look, now we become aid givers in 20 years because they're wealthy. God gave them natural wealth.
Sierra Leone have had so many presidents. What is going to make you different from the rest of them? I mean, you say you have this plan. In 20 years, you could get out of loans and be able to be self-sustained. What would make you different from the rest of them?
Well,
why would somebody want you to be the president then?
Well, in life, you got to believe. Martin Luther King said to us, I have a dream. He said, you have to dream. And you have to believe that dream and work for it. Obama has benefited from that. Because of Martin Luther King and other civil rights leaders, it looked impossible that they will get the vote or they will be free and discrimination will be minimized and they can play leadership roles. Well, they had a dream over 40 years ago, and based on that dream, a black man, in fact, a black man with partly an African origin is a president here, and he has rescued this nation from the worst financial crisis the world has seen since the 1930s. I have the same belief that this is the moment for my people. It's just like Mandela believed that yes, you can say no to apartheid, you can say no to evil, and you can pay a price, suffer for it. But if your people believe it, you can get there. Mandela did not worry whether it would be 1 year or 2 years. He believed it. He put his life on the line. So I'm going home, putting my life on the line too, that yes, I convince my people. That's the important part here. To convince them that they can be better. Not that I'm going to make them better. Another analogy I give you. Mm-hmm. President Kennedy said in this country, in the United States, I'm happy I'm sitting in Boston right now. Mm-hmm. He said we can put a man on the moon within a decade. The Americans did it within a decade. The point is good vision, good planning, and good knowledge. You can move nations. Ideas can move people. They can move nations. And I believe that I'm well equipped now. I've looked at economic diversification across the world. I've looked at major infrastructure investments, done global leadership on energy, climate change, economic diversification. I say to myself, look, I've learned enough. We know best practices. We know how to build public-private partnerships. We know how to establish accountability system. So the people know what wealth they have. They hold me accountable and hold others accountable that you will deliver for us this time. That's what I want to do. Even if that's all I succeed. Even if that's all I succeed. I want to leave this world knowing, you know something? When I was most comfortable, I gave it up to come be with my people in my village, in my country, door to door, convincing them that they and their children ought to be better, and they must hold their leadership accountable for that prosperity. And yes, that's my belief. I believe it, I dream it, and I want to do it now. From dream to action.
We'll take a break and we'll come back to that.